Ask and you shall receive.
What on earth was that?
What's up, my friends? Welcome back to yet another video. This one has been a long time coming. I made one a few years back and I figured it was about time to make one with commentary on. Some of you guys may know the story behind this glass shrimp. It is kind of my home run, I like to say. It's pretty hard to come up with new patterns these days, and I'm pretty sure this isn't even the first time somebody's doing it quite like this maybe. The inspiration to this fly actually came from the magic shrimp from the Danish fly tyer and fly fisher Rune Westphal. Thing is, I don't like upside down shrimps all that much because of the weight you have to add to them to make them turn the right way around in the water. So I played around with it a little bit and figured, why don't I tie this on the hook the regular way up. It looks way harder than it is, but I'll try to get you through the steps as best as I can, and hopefully you guys will be able to tie a few of these very soon, and hopefully also catch a lot of fish on them. They are really good, so let's get straight to it. The hook in the vise is from Eric's Hooks. It is the NS122 in a size 4, and it is, in my opinion, the best hook for this fly at least. And I'll show you why in just a second. Just get a layer of thread on here. Now I'm using a mono thread for this fly because I wanted to keep the transparency. Right, so as you can see here, the hook has a slight bend to it, and the way to do that is just to get your hook and a pair of pliers, and then just grab that hook kind of like this, and then just, I don't know why, it's easier, bend that just a little bit. So what you're left with is something that's looking like this. Now you can do this to the Eric's hook without any problems of it snapping in half. The Gamakatsu's, the F314, it kind of tends to snap on 8 out of 10 hooks, so you can use that if you want, but spare yourself some frustration and use a hook that will withstand that bend. Okay, so first off, I want to get the proportions of this fly right, starting by the head. So put on some doving here. Just go slightly down the bend of the hook here. Get yourself a dubbing brush, tease that out. And as you guys know, I always say that I like to use a little more time on the head part of the shrimp or of my shrimp flies, because that is the key thing that will make it look like a shrimp, if you ask me. So take your time on the head and get that right, and the rest will be pretty easy from there. I think I need a little bit more. And if you're wondering what dubbing I'm using, I will try and remember to put a material list down in the video description, so if I don't mention it here, have a look down in the description. And if I don't forget it, it will be down there. Like that. Brush that out. And then what I like to do is to take the materials. I didn't even mention what dubbing I'm using here. This is STF dub in the color Golden Honey, which is a really cool name for a really cool dubbing. So what I like to do is, when I've brushed it out, I like to pull it a little bit back like this and tie on top of it to right around there where the thread meets the hook point. If you let it hang like this, I think this is looking good. I like to kind of pull it upwards like this, and you can see it at this point already. It kind of has this shape of a shrimp already at this point. So now get your thread back to the hook eye there, and now we will build the taper of the fly, starting from the back and moving our way up the hook. Let's get some more on there. You can really see it starting to take shape here. Just a tiny bit more. That's enough. And I seem to have cut myself on the hook without even noticing it. Right, so as you can see, it goes from thin to thick, and we already have the head shape here. Then I want to incorporate some of this eye stub in copper, which is a really cool dubbing, fairly long, which is great. Because I want this to act like the feelers on the head of the shrimp here. Just thin that out a little bit. There we go. So what I will do is to place it on top of the hook here. Get a turn in. And then just... Now I tied this in on the middle of the bunch, roughly. And then just flip this back over on itself. And then just tie on top of that all the way up to where the head needs to be, which was here. I always use this hook point to measure out where the shrimp back and where the head part needs to go. So now I just want to trim these a little bit. I don't want them that long. This one is a bit weird, so let's get that one out of the way. That's looking good. And this will, there's not much movement in this fly apart from the legs and this up in front here. So that's why I like to add that in, just to get a little bit of movement in there. Right, so the fly will be getting a shrimp shell. This is from Pro Sport Fisher. These are the new generation of shrimp backs. They look like this. Let me hold them down here. They come in all sorts of colors and shapes. They even come with pre-made eyes. This one will be getting homemade eyes, but these also come in variants with printed eyes on them, so it can't be much easier than that. And they are just so cool. The amount of detail on these is just amazing. I don't know how they do it over there, but it most certainly looks really, really great. So I have one here prepared. I just kind of want to look where I want it to be. So let's get some eyes on there. Before we put on that shrimp shell. And what I like to do is to tie one in and then put the shell on top of the fly to have a look where I want it to be, that eye. Now I want it to be just in that, it's really hard to see here, but just in that kind of that dent that's going in right there. That's where I want my eye. And a way to measure that out is to just tie the eye in with a few turns, put on the shrimp back, and then if you have a look here from the top, let me see if I can twist that. It is really, really hard to see. I should have put on a white or a gray t-shirt, but I'm sure you guys get the idea. That's good right there. So just tie the eyes in with a couple of turns before you secure them. That way you can pull the mono here and really get them in to place. And another thing I like to do when tying these in is to, whoa, I pulled that too hard. As I secure these, kind of want to get them up on top of the hook, right around where that bend is, and then cut that off at an angle. What that will do is will give you a bump here, or it will help to exaggerate that bump that humpback shrimp kind of has. If you look at a shrimp, they're not really straight. They always kind of have like a little humpback. So just a final cleanup here of the fly. And what I mean by that is to you want to tie that dubbing underneath here. Get that under control so you don't have dubbing and hair sticking out to all the sides. Because you will be covering the whole body with UV resin, and if you have hair sticking out to the sides, it's pretty hard to do. So take your time and clean it up. And let's get that shrimp back on here. The loose turn. Make sure it sits. And then just with open turns, work your way down the shank. And there's just a tiny bit left here. You can either snip this off, or like I like to just flip this back over on itself and tie on top of that. A few turns like that. Let's get a whip finish on there. One is enough. Cut off the thread. And at this point the tying is already done, so from now on it will just be gluing, fly gluing. So first thing up is to take care of the head here, because as you can as you saw, or maybe if you look at it like this, it kind of, this would work too, but I really want this front part of the fly to stand up. So flip this back over, get some UV resin into the materials here, just in the front, and work that in. Like that. So work it in and kind of flare it out like that, so it's kind of like a V, and if you look at it from the top. Flip this back over, and while holding it like this, go ahead and cure that resin underneath. So as you can see here, it is now standing up. I think this eye needs a little bit of resin there, just to have it stay in place. There we go. Now, and that's the entire beauty of this fly. It is a lot of small steps you can do here to really help make it perfect. So same thing for the eye on the other side here. Like that. Now I can see the eyes are really poking out to the sides there. I think I want a little bit of this dubbing here underneath to point forwards. Like that. Trim it a little bit, like that. Now for the legs, I like to use this stretch round rib from Wapsi, and this is 0.4 millimeters. This comes in a lot of other sizes as well, all the way up to 1 millimeter in thickness, which is way too thick for a small flag like this. I find a size 4 hook and downwards to size 6 or size 8, maybe even. This 0.5 millimeters is the best one. If you have a hard time to come by this round stretch rib, you can try Googling jewelry thread, and that's basically just the same thing, and you will even get that on spools with 100 meters on. I just like this because it comes in other colors, so, and jewelry thread always almost is just the clear one, but you could have just colored that with a Sharpie or something like that. So Google jewelry thread and you will find it. I've already pre-made my legs here. I will show you one here. I'll show you just that one. Sounding like a teacher here. I'm only going to say this once. Grab a piece of jewelry thread, put a knot in so it looks like this, just a simple overhand knot, and moisten that just a little bit so it looks like this, and then just pull that knot tight, and that will give you a perfect leg pointing downwards the way it should. And then you just trim that off and make 6 of these, or 10 if you're at it. Just make a bunch so you have for more than just that one fly. Okay, so I have 6 legs lying in front of me here, pre-knotted, and I like to glue these in because tying them in is a lot harder. They will roll on you and they will just make you insane. So I like to glue my legs in. So let me just measure out the front legs. Also, I like to glue these in pairs. So starting from the front of the fly and then moving my way back. So what I like to do is to take 2 legs and align them with the knots like this, and then just cut off in the back there, leaving me with 2 smaller ends like that. And these are obviously way too long, but I will trim that when the fly is done. So turn the fly over on the side here. Get a drop of UV resin onto just a small part of the fly in the front here. And then push that leg into that dubbing, or not the dubbing, in the resin, of course, until you have it at a point where it looks good to you. Zap it with your lamp and it will stay right there. You couldn't see that because that was facing towards me, so let me do that on your side here. Just a little drop on the belly as well there. Might as well start to build up that tapered body. So as you can see here, now I have resin on that point right there. And you can even use these marks on the shrimp back to mark where you or to aim for, so your legs will get the same length roughly. Now, I am not used to doing it this way. Normally I'll just flip this fly around in the vise so I can see what I'm doing. I think this looks good. It doesn't need to be that perfect. for the fish at least. So let's get another pair of legs in. Same thing, line them up like this. Measure it. Cut off the ends, leave the long ends. Same thing again. Get a drop on there and just distribute that a little bit. Get your lamp ready. And just kind of work with it a little bit. If you're not satisfied, fold it off and place it again. Now this is not the easiest thing, I'll admit that. It might look easy here because I've done this so many times, but just keep at it and you'll get just as good at it as me. Probably even better. Some of you guys, I've seen the work from some of you guys out there, and it is just mind-blowing. You guys are pretty damn good. Which is a good thing for me, because that keeps my inspiration level really, really high. I am a bit competitive, so just keep at it, keep cranking out those beautiful flies, because it really inspires me. So let's get the one on this side. I might have to turn that a little bit. I am so sorry for that, but I can't see what I'm doing. Here we go. Last pair of legs. Same thing. Line up the nuts. Trim off the back ends there. Now the last pair of legs I almost always trim off a little bit shorter, because they sit. Otherwise I would have to glue them in all the way back here to make the proportions right. So I just like to snip those off a little bit shorter. Also, for each pair of legs that I glue in, I go over the belly on the fly here to make a little, I guess a little bump up here, and what that will do is will help the fly keel right in the water, because most of the weight will be up here and underneath the fly, so it won't flip over on the side or on the back. If you leave or if you build up a small bump on the belly right around that hook point there, it will help the fly turn the right way over in the water. So let me get that one on here. Last leg. Whoa. Sorry if I blew you guys' ears out there. Right, so now the legs are in, and now all there's left to do is to cover the fly with a layer of resin, and it will be done. As good as done, at least. So I like to just again start from the hook point here, and then just work my way down just with a thin layer. Up the sides a little bit. Not a whole lot. Just a really thin layer. And when you're happy with that, just let it sit upside down in the vise like this. And then before you turn it, here's a little trick for you. If you loosen the fly in the vise a little bit and push it up like that, all the resin will run downwards and collect itself down here where you want that bump to be. And you can of course help it a little bit with your bobbin needle. Dubbing needle, not a bobbin needle. I don't even know what that is. So I'm happy with that. Go ahead and cure it. And that's the belly of the fly done there. Let's get the top part finished. Same thing, just a thin layer. Cover the entire shell back here. And this fly is also pretty close to indestructible. And as always, the trick to working with resin is to just take your time and then just build it up in stages. I've got all the time in the world here, and if you move your fly around in the vise, of course it helps to have a vise that has rotation like mine, so it can rotate the hook on its own axis. But the first flies of this kind, I didn't even have a vise like this, so it can be done, but it's of course a lot easier on a vise like this. or similar. Oh, it's starting to look good here. I think I'm happy with that, at least for the sake of this video. It is a long one, so go ahead and cure that. There we go. Now all there's left to do is to trim those legs, starting at the back, and just trim off a little bit at a time, and then work your way up to the front legs. Like that. And you want them to be a little bit shorter in the back, and then going forward you want them to get slightly longer than the pair in the back, just for the sake of the taper and all that. And if you find this fly tangling a little bit out on the water, just take your these might tangle up a little bit around the hook here, as you can see. Now, fishing wise, that doesn't matter, but if it annoys you, just take your tippet cutter and snip these off a little bit. I like to keep them a little bit longer. Also, it looks a lot cooler on the photos, but if you're annoyed by these tangling up, just trim them a little bit shorter and it will fish just as well. That's it for today, guys. If you like this video, please do give it a like, leave a comment down there, let me know how you liked it. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please make sure to do that, and I will see you guys in the next video.